Well, it is Sunday afternoon, and I am in the office getting ready for a busy week for our law firm, both in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. I was out of the office yesterday getting a little sunburn with my kids and my wife in Ocean City, back and just getting ready for a very, very tough week that's ahead of us. So we're just gearing up for that. With that said, we'll be putting out a blog article regarding a recent Supreme Court case in Pennsylvania, Ferguson v. PENNDOT. It's a case involving ARD, and it's a case where the Supreme Court ruled that the ARD does count for the purposes of license suspension. Now, this is just to distinguish this between this and the Schiffer case, which was talked about the ARD being conviction. In the Ferguson case, that ruling has to do with a civil aspect of it, which is the suspension. And there the court said that the license suspension is permissible, and the PENNDOT can use the ARD like a prior offense for the purposes of the license suspension. So it's a unique decision in the sense that people often confuse what PENNDOT does and what a criminal court does. PENNDOT, just like when you refuse a chemical test, PENNDOT can suspend your license regardless of what happens in the criminal court, because the actual refusal is a administrative sanction, which PENNDOT, as the overseer, if you will, of licenses in Pennsylvania, in the Commonwealth, they have the ability to do that. And what the Supreme Court said in the Ferguson decision was it's part of PENNDOT's police powers for health, safety, and welfare. It isn't a due process issue, like they said in Shiflett, which is a situation in that case where courts were using ARD for sentencing enhancement. So if you had the ARD and you had another DUI, they were treating that second DUI as a second DUI for purpose of sentencing, where the ARD wasn't actually a criminal conviction. You hadn't entered a plea of guilt, and therefore the court therefore found that they couldn't use the ARD against you for sentencing enhancement purposes because you weren't found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt by a judge or jury. So there was a due process issue. So it's an important decision to understand if you have a license suspension pending and you get a letter from PENNDOT and you're confused by it, especially if you're in a situation where you have perhaps maybe an out-of-state situation or it's your second offense and you're not sure if you have a viable appeal process, that you just want to just consider that. Remember that there is a difference between the civil aspect of the DUI in Pennsylvania and actually also in New Jersey. There's a difference between what an administrative body can do and what a court can do and whether or not it violates due process. But if you have questions, 215-755-9000 in Pennsylvania, 856-793-7429 in New Jersey, the website gamboandlaw.com. As always, a tremendous resource for you and your family. All of my books, my blogs, my videos are available there in one convenient format. It is Sunday. People are driving back from the shore probably. Please do it responsibly. If you are stopped for suspicion of DUI in Pennsylvania or New Jersey, do not refuse the chemical test. It will never help your criminal case. What I just said before was they can and will suspend your license administratively, regardless of what happens in the criminal case. Yes, there are ways that you can fight it, but really, there are very, very limited situations. The best course of action is to take the chemical test. Now, I put out a blog article recently about the field sobriety test. Those are optional. You can refuse those and you don't have to take them. Just be aware that more than likely the prosecution will argue possibly some type of consciousness of guilt. You knew that you were drinking and driving, and therefore you refused the test. Now, that's not the reason to not take the test. The field sobriety test, I have been one of the people who said that it's very, very difficult to pass those tests sometimes because they are unnatural movements, and really any older person or even any younger person who's had an injury or possibly some type of just pulled muscle or whatever is going to have trouble with those tests. So they're not always the fairest test. But once again, if you have questions, 215-755-9000 in Pennsylvania, 856-793-7429 in New Jersey. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy it responsibly, and I'll talk to you all very soon.